What it do, everybody? It's your boy King Crowder back again with another historical lesson from history you may not know and things that are not taught in detail for sure. Today's lesson, we're going to go all the way down to North Florida. We're going to focus on a town known as Ocoee, Florida. Ocoee, sorry if I'm pronouncing it wrong, Florida, the North Panhandle of Florida. This situation happened between November 2nd and November 3rd of 1920. Did you know that most parts in America and this country have had a form of ethnic cleansing? Ethnic cleansing is when you saw racial violence being done to Black Americans to make sure white mob got rule, enforce power, and how they enforce power over a certain parts of society. The Ocoee Massacre was a mass racial cleansing when a white mob attacked Black Americans in northern part of Ocoee, Florida. The town is located in Orange County, near Orlando, previously inhabited of the Seminole Black American Native tribes. It was the home of almost 300 Black American residents to 400 white American residents. This massacre took place starting on November 2nd, 1920. It was right when the U.S. presidential campaign was beginning to go up, and many people in that town, a total of 30 to 35 Black Americans, were killed. It was known as one of the most bloodiest modern-day political massacres in U.S. history. If you are from the state of Florida, did you know that? Most Black American buildings in Northeast Florida, right, were burned down. They were shot. They were driven out, and they got no just due. And most people do not know, Ocoee became an all-white town that was mostly mixed, better known as a sundown town. Check the previous video for that. I break down what a sundown town is, what had happened, and how it works. What it did was this attack prevented Black Americans in this place from voting. They had poll taxes already to disenfranchise them and make people that were poor, most of them were sharecroppers in this area, have no right, as well as voter registration. What they did was that they pressured Black Americans by refusing to give them the right to vote. If voting doesn't matter, why would you inhibit someone else from having that right to do so? In return, since the people did not go and they wanted to champion their rights, shotguns, political workers were armed, broken down, shot, and deputies in the county did nothing but rest and open the end on the people that were actively in that community. Reinforcements from Orlando and Orange County were called upon. They were later laid rest to lynching Perry, one of the Black American leaders of the area, shooting his people that supported him, and intimidating the other Black people, pushing them out of town, taking their land, shooting them, and they never got a just due. Now for the background. 28 formerly enslaved people lived in this area when they first settled. When the first enslaved owner was named was Mr. Stark. He was in Orange County around 1860. Many Black Americans of this area purchased their own land from the wealthy part. They worked the land. They grew it. They developed it. They built it for them own. Most people have no idea in a historical context. The Southern whites were the Dixiecrats. Democratic Party was the party of racism, inhabitants going against the grain. The KKK was actively funded inside of Democratic politics. The judge and many others in his day enforced a poll tax because they worried that the Black Americans were gaining too much right post the Civil War. They were. Many Black Americans at that time built themselves. They were craftsmen. They developed their own land. They wanted to exercise their right to vote, feed themselves, be a part of the electoral process, and grow their wealth. So, as American citizens, gaining full access to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, they wanted to use what their rights gave them. So, election day was coming up. They literally participated in the election process. They were good galvanized, they championed, and they elected leaders of their community to represent them. Makes sense, right? You want people of your community to represent you. Why would you want others who have no just due or ending in your community to represent you? That is what many others from across the way had an issue with. So, Mr. Perry, who was a leader in this community, Julie Perry, said about that the Perry household was where they galvanized, championed, and broke down issues. Mr. Perry's home was the first one they targeted. White mobs began to fire at this home, not in self-defense, but out of curiosity, for no reason. His family, his children, his loved ones were there, and they had to retreat and go out the back door. Mr. Perry stood ground, 10 toes down, firing back, causing a white man named Elmer McDaniels and Lee Bogart to be killed during the exchange. Their bodies were found later due to the extreme capacity That is when many of the white mob began to radicalize, raise, and target every black civilian in sight. The aftermath of what all happened is that one white person was killed, so 35 to 45 black Americans had to die because one people chose to charge and go at another person's home. So let's get this straight. One crime took place in one part of town, right? One person was killed due to whatever happened in that situation. Due to that person being killed from what they did that influenced that person, the rest of the people in their community had to suffer. So think about if you lived in Ocoee, Florida at that time. Your family, y'all grew this land, this is all you knew. You were forced to leave at 4:45 a.m., middle of the night. You were forced to leave with gunshots, your home being burned. You didn't have money, you didn't have resources, all your crops. Think about this. There was no major road, no systems, anything like that. All of this happened in the middle of the night while your family was sleeping. You were drove out into the woods around the rental park area. You were beginning to subjugate with other black people you never met. No matter if you had issues, all carpenters, everybody was beaten, castrated. Pregnant girls were hunted, shot down, their bodies were burned, mutilated. Everything happened in the middle of the night and no one knew what happened. Think about that. The black people in that town were forced to flee. War crimes were done in the surrounding woods in the middle of the night. Mind you, it's November. It's cold. The elements. You have no food. You probably have not eaten. You're sleep deprived and your house is completely gone. All of this action right here is known as the Great Retreat. Black Americans live in a small amount of towns in this country were literally forced out. That is why you see many black Americans living in industrialized cities, just so they could protect each other. You had others you lived around and you did not feel isolated. That is why you see, when you see most urban communities, you see a lot of black Americans. This is why. After this issue happened, this town of Ocoee began to literally lose its black population overnight. The 500 or so black residents were there, later turned to zero. All of that population of black Americans who were settled, who worked that land for over 80 years, was gone. The word spread out, do not go to this town. They are anti-black, they riddled with bullets, they shoot you unconstitutionally, and no law enforcement went to check on it. No law enforcement went to check on it. No law enforcement went to see what was going on. No law enforcement went to educate others what was going on at this time. If you are in the state of Florida, have you ever heard of this massacre? If you ever visited Florida, have you knew this situation happened? If you ever had a family member or others live near that place in Florida, have they ever broke down to you what occurred and what made them leave? Walter White of the NAACP, the Florida chapter, traveled to this part of the town to discover what had happened. The white people in this town said they chose to leave. Black Americans voluntarily left. They don't know what happened. But in actuality, the words, the people that talked about it, the 70 plus black Americans that were killed in this massacre never got a proper burial, never got a proper due, never got a proper study, and many people have no idea or never learned in their local history classes. The FBI, later down the years, chose to investigate, and what they later showed up was that there wasn't a massive investigation on arson, murder, or what caused crime. They were only interested in the potential election fraud. That's where the judgment, the lack of trust, and the lack of understanding came in these communities. The paper at this time wrote, Black Americans mobilized, and when the white Americans had to defend themselves, when in actuality, it happened the other way. 2 deaths to white Americans resulted in over 50 deaths of blacks. Violence is never the answer, but learning our history and the entire story is how we get the message. Northeast Florida, stand up. Have you ever heard this? Have you heard of the ethnic cleansing of a town that was formerly mixed that became later on a sundown? Ocoee, Florida massacre, one of the bloodiest events, all occurred because many people wanted the right to vote. It was mostly a mixed town. Now, only literally 2 black Americans currently live there in this prior census. It's your boy, King Crowder, back again with another edition of History You May Not Know, or things that are not taught in detail for sure. Today's lesson was focusing on the great state of Florida, focusing on the Ocoee massacre and what happened on the Peace.